A very good evening and thank you for joining GBS News at 9. My name is Stephen George and our sign language interpreter tonight is Ivy Kamau. We have a lot lined up for you tonight. Let's go to our first story. Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has sharply criticized the government's decision to slash capitation to public secondary schools, calling it a betrayal of Kenya's commitment to education. Speaking at Young Leaders Conference held at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, Nyoro condemned the reduction of funding from 22,000 shillings to 16,000 shillings 900 per student, warning that such a move threatens to derail gains made in free basic education. He described the cut as a major setback and a clear indication that the government is sidelining education in favor of other less pressing priorities. Beatrice Wangui with the details.
For years, the government capitation has been the lifeline of Kenya's public secondary schools, enabling institutions to provide basic learning resources, pay for utilities, and ease the financial burden on parents. However, a recent move to reduce this funding from 22,000 Kenyan shillings to 16,900 Kenyan shillings per student has raised alarm across the education sector, with many fearing the consequences will be felt most by learners from underprivileged backgrounds.
The schooling system will collapse, given that in the previous years we also have undisbursed funds.
It means that this term they have not sent any capitation to schools, are merely coping with the circumstance, coping.
Speaking at the Young Leaders Conference at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro condemned the capitation cut, calling it a blow to the country's efforts to ensure equal access to education. He accused the government of misaligned priorities, citing unnecessary spending on office renovations, while critical education needs remain underfunded. Nyoro also warned that continued financial strain on schools could lead to overcrowded classrooms, demoralized teachers, and a rise in school dropouts.
We are not going to allow anyone to play around with the issue of free basic education. Kenya has always afforded to fund free basic education. Kenya has always afforded to pay for examinations. Hii sarakasi haitaanza. Stop those renovations you are doing in big offices. Direct that money into the education of the Kenyan children. Na nataka niseme hatuombi mambo ya free basic education. We are not begging from anyone. We are demanding that it must continue.
At the heart of this debate lies the learner, the student whose future now hangs in the balance. As schools grapple with reduced resources, questions linger about the sustainability of free basic education and the country's true commitment to empowering its youth. The capitation policy, once a symbol of equity, now risks becoming a barrier unless urgent steps are taken to realign national spending with the needs of Kenya's children. Beatrice Wangui, GBS News.
Moving on swiftly, Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki has urged Mount Kenya leaders to avoid violence in politics, saying the chaotic scenes witnessed in the region during the anti-government protest. Speaking in Maragua, Murang'a County during an economic empowerment, the DP said the government is determined to promote development, as Davis Karani now reports.
It was one of the special moments in a visit by the country's second-in-command, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, to the Mount Kenya region, while he urged these regional communities to remain peaceful and be calm even as the political turmoil keeps rising in the country.
Watu wa Murang'a, watu ya Maragua, watu wa Central, mimi nawaomba kwa heshima, hata kama tuko na siasa mrengo huu, mrengo ule, mimi nawaomba kwa heshima, hiyo siasa yetu tuifanye kwa njia ya amani. Hiwe ni siasa ya kushindana na agenda ya kusaidia wananchi. Tushindane ni nani ako na agenda bora zaidi ya mwingine ya kufanya kazi ya maendeleo. Lakini tusiweke vita na fujo.
The DP, who also spoke on the importance and the achievements made by the broad-based government, stating that they are making efforts to bring everyone on board, a statement which was backed up by the leaders who escorted him during this economic empowerment tour.
Mtoto akizaliwa, anazaliwa siku ya kwanza unanyonyesha. Ukienda 1 year anaanza kutembea kidogo. Second year anaenda shule. Niwaulize, unaweza fanyisha mtoto exam ya form 4 akiwa form 2?
Mushikilie William Ruto. Hii serikali ni yenyu. Sini sisi tuliokera tene.
Sisi tumeamua kushikilia serikali. Na kama mimi nashikilia serikali na niko Ukambani, wa Maua hata yeye ameamua kushikilia akiwa hapa. Na ni vizuri mtu akiangalia nyuma anaona watu wake wako hapo. Nyinyi mko nyuma ya wa Maua. Na mmemwambia aende achukue mambo ya serikali awaletee hapa. Na ashikilie His Excellency Dr. William Ruto na Kithure Kindiki. Hata mimi natoka huko Ukambani na nimesema sisi kama wanawake, sisi kama wabunge tutashikilia president wetu aweze kutufanyia kazi na tutembee na yeye mpaka mwaka wa 2027 na kuendelea mbele.
Davis Karani for GBS News.
Confusion deepens within the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, as internal divisions over the party stance in the broad-based government political arrangement with Kenya Kwanza continue to escalate, with Secretary General Edwin Sifuna's recent remarks sparking outrage and demands for clarification from party leader Raila Odinga.
His Excellency Abdullahi, Governor Wajir.
The rift within the ODM widened after Sifuna publicly criticized President William Ruto, drawing backlash from both ODM insiders and political allies. During a public event in Garissa, hosted by Governors Ahmed Abdullahi and Natif Jama, leaders distanced themselves from Sifuna's sentiments, branding them as personal and not reflective of ODM's position. Calls have since mounted for Raila to either affirm or disown Sifuna's statements, with some demanding disciplinary action against him if he acted independently. Meanwhile, northeastern leaders benefiting from ties within the Ruto government continue to push for closer cooperation, further straining party unity.
A majority of ODM at every level is supportive of the broad-based government, and our party leader has said it on national TV that he will support President Ruto until 2027, na mambo wengine tutafika wakati huo na to discuss. Kwa hivyo wale wanapiga makelele, sijui President Ruto amewakosea lini. I don't know why it's so personal.
Tensions within ODM have been brewing since the party's alignment with the Kenya Kwanza administration began, drawing criticism from within its ranks. While leaders like Governor Abdullahi advocate embracing Ruto's leadership to secure development gains for their regions, Sifuna has remained a vocal critic of the government's policies. His persistence in opposing the alliance has cast doubt on the cohesion and direction of ODM, prompting speculation about internal power struggles and conflicting agendas.
Tafadhali Governor, kama ODM muliamua muko na national priority agenda, kama wanachama, musiite kama national priority agenda, muite ODM priority agenda. Na kama si agenda ya ODM, basi tafadhali utuulizie msamaha. Wakuje wa apologize kwetu kwa ajili hatukuulizwa. So Governor, wakati unarudi Nairobi ongea na ODM yenyu, nafikiri Sifuna amepotea njia.
As Raila Odinga returns to the country, pressure is mounting on him to assert control and offer clear guidance on the party's position. With the 2027 general election on the horizon and northeastern Kenya emerging as a strategic voting bloc, ODM's internal clarity could significantly influence the party's prospects in the evolving political landscape. The coming weekend is expected to see heightened political activity as Raila allies demand answers and decisive leadership. Reporting for GBS, I'm Molin Rono.
Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi is calling for a national mindset shift in how the country engages its youth. Speaking at a fundraising dinner hosted by the Akili Foundation in Nairobi, Mudavadi urged leaders to embrace meaningful dialogue with young Kenyans who now make up more than 75% of the population. Susan Nganga with more.
With more than 75% of the population under 35, Kenya's youth are not just the future, they are the present. And for Musalia Mudavadi, it's time for a shift in how the nation views them.
I think we need to also change the tone of the nation as we communicate with the young people. And the biggest culprits are actually people like me, the politicians. We have been talking down to the young people. We are not having a conversation.
Addressing guests and leaders at the Akili Foundation dinner, Mudavadi called for investments that go beyond just funding to build skills, knowledge, and strong values.
You are only rich if you impact on people's lives. The satisfaction that comes with making a fellow human being a better person makes you rich in the heart.
He shared part of his journey, reminding the room he became finance minister at just 33 and used examples from history to highlight what young leaders can do.
And yours truly, the gentleman standing here, became a minister at 28. And I became Minister for Finance at 33. And I think I can exercise some bragging rights here that at that age, I was at the center of transforming and opening up and liberalizing the economy of this country at 33.
On technology and the digital space, Mudavadi warned against misinformation and the darker sides of AI, saying young people need to be grounded in truth. He also pushed back against any glorification of force or military rule, saying Kenya must safeguard its democracy. Since its founding in 2011, Dr. Jose Akili, the Akili Foundation has reached over 5,000 young people, offering mentorship, digital skills, and leadership training. Susan Nganga, GBS News, Nairobi.
Well, it is time for us to take a short break. Keep your feedback streaming into our social media platform at GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 214. We'll be right back.
My name is Ima Gatoru. I'm a model, a commercial model to be precise. And I've been asked this question, like, is model an art? And yes, modeling is an art. Because there are different products that you're supposed to promote or design, and you have to have that skill of you promoting that design or that product. So how you walk, how you talk, how you present yourself, like how you pose for a picture or pose for an item in your mepewa, or how you drive into a place in your mepewa. So you have to have that art or that skill for you to actually deliver what they want you to deliver. So yeah, modeling is an art.
Today on the show, we're talking about navigating the long-distance relationship.
First of all, the world is now a global village thanks to technology and the internet.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about relationships, when you talk about love, when you talk about feelings, when you talk about emotions, all these things originate from the heart. I never saw in the Bible where someone was married and then the wife was living far away from them and then there was something that they were building.
When it comes to relationships and probably communication, that distance is not a barrier.
Yeah.
But it is in communication, in effective communication. There is something that long-distance relationships lack, which is very essential for effective relationship building.
When you're cooking and the tap gets spoiled, do you try to repair it from that point, or you run to the main source and then you close it?
Welcome to
Fun
Dance Class. Today we will continue learning about Jingle Bell Rock. Friends, first you cross your arm and put it on top of your head, and as you go in left side, you open it, then you come back to your place.
And then you make your leg 90 degrees, and then as you put your legs until 90 degrees, you need to jump a bit. 1, 2. Then as you jump a bit, you need to stretch your hands downwards.
Hello everyone! Welcome to Fun Story Class. Friend, today I'm going to read the story of the ant and the grasshopper. Friend, this is a very interesting story, so listen carefully. The ant and grasshopper were good friends. The grasshopper was enjoying the fine weather, playing all day. He asked the ant for food, and ant gave him some. But my food is just enough for my family to last until the end of winter. If I give you more, we too will starve.
Mahali ambapo nakukaribisha tena kwa mpigo tena zaidi kila siku ya Jumamosi. Unazidi kuungana nasi.
Ukiangalia realities walianza kwa moto sana.
Ndani ya Sports Sugu, mahali ambapo tunakuelimisha na tunakujuza mengi kuhusiana na mambo ya kandanda, sababu hapa nchini Kenya, ligi kuu nchini Uingereza, mahali ambapo ni Uhispaniola, Ujerumani, Ureno, kila kitu inakuwa iko swadakta kabisa.
Everywhere, GBS.
Well, and welcome back. The peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo strongly condemns the resurgence of violence in the Ituri province, which has resulted in the deaths of dozens of civilians. Susan Nganga brings us more.
At the United Nations headquarters in New York, optimism has been quickly tempered by a resurgence of bloodshed in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Just days after the Congolese government and M23 rebels signed a declaration of principles in Doha, hailed as a key step towards peace, the UN is now confronting fresh violence in the East. UN Deputy Spokesperson Farhan confirmed that 82 civilians were killed in recent attacks in Ituri and North Kivu.
The peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, MONUSCO, strongly condemns the resurgence of violence in the Ituri province, which has resulted in the deaths of dozens of civilians. The mission is especially concerned by the repeated and deadly attacks carried out by the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces, which have claimed the lives of 82 civilians in the provinces of Ituri and North Kivu.
The Allied Democratic Forces and armed groups like Codeco are being blamed for assaults on villages, including looting of a Catholic church in Jugu territory.
MONUSCO also condemns the attacks on civilians that occurred earlier this week in Jugu territory, as well as the looting and desecration of the Catholic parish of Lopa, attributed to the Codeco armed group. MONUSCO encourages provincial authorities to continue promoting dialogue among all communities in Ituri to reduce tensions.
But for millions displaced by years of war, peace is still a distant hope. Over 4.6 million people have fled their homes in North and South Kivu since 2022, nearly 500,000 during a single flare-up around Goma in late 2024. Access to food, shelter, and medical care remains dire, and gender-based violence is surging. The UN Refugee Agency warns of critical funding gaps as humanitarian needs soar. Meanwhile, regional tensions linger. The UN continues to monitor cross-border dynamics, including alleged military support to armed groups from neighboring states. Susan Nganga, GBS News, Congo.
A landmark ruling from the International Criminal Court has brought long-awaited justice to victims of violence in the Central African Republic. Patrice Edward Ngaisona and Alfred Yekatum, the two former militia leaders, have been convicted of war crimes and crimes against humanity for organizing brutal attacks on civilians. Here is more on the verdict and what it means for peace in the region.
At the International Criminal Court, justice has been served. Patrice Edward Ngoisana and Alfred Yekotom, two former militia leaders from the Central African Republic, have been found guilty of orchestrating brutal attacks on Muslim civilians during the country's 2013 to 2014 sectarian conflict. Ngoisana, once head of the National Football Federation, was convicted of 28 war crimes and crimes against humanity. Yekotom, known as Rambo, was found guilty of 20 crimes.
On the basis of its analysis of evidence submitted and discussed at trial, and as set out in the judgment, the Chamber has therefore convicted Alfred Yekatom of a total of 20 crimes, comprising both crimes against humanity and war crimes. The Chamber has also convicted Patrice Edouard Ngaisona of a total of 28 crimes, comprising both crimes against humanity and war crimes.
Together, they led anti-Balaka militias in a violent campaign that left thousands dead, including 1,000 killed in a single day in Bangui.
As specified in detail in the verdict rendered by the Chamber, Alfred Yekatom has been found guilty of a number of crimes he committed in the context of the attack on Bangui, the events at Yambara, and during the advance of his group on the PK9 Bike axis. Namely, attacks against the civilian population as such, murder, forcible transfer, displacement and deportation, directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, torture, cruel treatment, other inhumane acts, imprisonment and other severe deprivation of physical liberty and persecution. Further, and as specified in detail in the verdict, and in the judgment, Patrice Edouard Ngaisona has been found guilty of a number of crimes he aided, abetted, or otherwise assisted to in the context of the attacks on Bangui and Bosangoa, the events at Yambara, and during the advance of the anti-Balaka on the PK9 Bike axis. Namely, attacks against the civilian population, as such, murder, forcible transfer, displacement, deportation, directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, torture, cruel treatment, other inhumane acts, imprisonment, and other severe deprivation of physical liberty, destruction of property, and persecution.
Victims were tortured, buried alive, and targeted solely for their religion. After a 4-year trial with over 170 witnesses, Yekotom received 15 years in prison, while Ngoisana received 12.
Mr. Yekatom, having considered all the relevant factors for the determination of the sentence, the Chamber sentences you to a total of 15 years of imprisonment. Mr. Ngaisona, having considered all the relevant factors for the determination of the sentence, the Chamber sentences you to a total of 12 years of imprisonment.
The verdict comes as two major rebel groups in Central African Republic dissolve, raising fragile hopes for peace. But the court's message is clear. Those responsible for atrocities will be held to account. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
$2.5 billion upgrade at Casablanca's Mohammed V Airport leads the effort. Now, Morocco has unveiled a major plan to expand and modernize its airports ahead of the 2030 FIFA World Cup, which it will co-host with Spain and Portugal. The country aims to boost annual airport capacity from 38 million to 80 million passengers by the end of the decade. Airports in Agadir, Tangier and Fez will be upgraded, with the biggest investment going to Casablanca's Mohammed V International Airport. A new terminal and a runway are planned there as well, with a price tag of around $2.5 billion. The project also supports Morocco's growing tourism industry. A record of 17 million visitors arrived in 2024, and the country hopes to attract 26 million by 2030. The same year, it helps host the World Cup 100th anniversary. In unprecedented show of executive pressure on the monetary policy, President Donald Trump visited the Federal Reserve's Washington headquarters, criticizing its $2.5 billion renovation project and urging Chair Jerome Powell to slash interest rates, marking a bold, politically charged move that blurs the traditional boundaries between the White House and the independent central bank. Here are the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump has made a rare visit to Federal Reserve headquarters, criticizing a $2.5 billion renovation project and renewing pressure on Chair Jerome Powell to cut interest rates. The White House called the spending excessive, with Trump claiming an actual cost of $3.1 billion, a figure Powell...
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. Other than that, what can I tell you? The country is doing really well. I just briefed the chairman on the deal we made with Japan. Japan is putting up $550 billion in order to lower their tariffs a little bit. That way they have a little bit lower tariff. And they also opened their country to free trade, which nobody thought was even a possibility. And we get a zero tariff in the free trade. We don't pay tariffs, and they're going to pay 15% on everything they send into our country. So it's great. But they put up, as you could call it, seed money. Let's call it seed money. You could call it anything you want, but it's it's a total of $550 billion. So nobody thought any of that was possible, and it's wonderful. And we're doing pretty well with the European Union, likewise, and we have some others. They're all really big, and our country's going to make a lot of money. We would be helped if interest rates would come down, but we're going to see how the board rules on that soon. I'd love to see them come down a lot, but we have a country that's thriving. We had a dead country 1 year ago. Today we have the hottest country anywhere in the world.
The visit comes as Trump intensifies efforts to influence Fed policy, arguing that high interest rates are stalling growth. The Fed has held rates steady at 4.25% to 4.5%, citing inflation concerns. Trump's direct engagement with Powell highlights mounting political pressure on the central bank.
We'd do better if we had lower interest rates, and we should. We're prime. Don't forget, without us, the whole world collapses. So we should have the lowest interest rate, because, you know, you can talk about Switzerland, you can talk about wonderful countries, no debt, but without us, everything collapses. We should have the lowest interest rate. And if you took it down 3 points, not a little bit, but 3 points, if you got us down to 1, we would save more than $1 trillion, basically with just a paper transfer. You wouldn't be cutting costs of anything. You wouldn't be building anything. Just a move of the hand saying we're going to lower interest rates. You would save $1 trillion a year.
While some Republicans support greater oversight, economists warn that such move risks undermining the Fed's independence. The visit underscores Trump's confrontational approach to economic policy. Beatrice Wango.
Guyana and the Dominican Republic, Barbados, St. Vincent, and the Ecuador are coming the first signatories to the Global Biodiversity Alliance. The signing marked the start of global movement and a call for countries and institutions to collaborate in protecting the ecosystems and sustain life on Earth.
At the edge of South Africa's wilderness, leaders, scientists, and environmental advocates debated how to confront the growing biodiversity crisis and how to mobilize the funding and political will needed to protect it. Guyana provided a symbolically complex setting. It's a country rich in offshore oil reserves, yet it has also preserved over 85% of its rainforest and is positioning itself as climate leader
for the conservation of tropical forests.
The contradiction was not ignored, and for many acknowledging it was an important first step.
The president being willing to stand on stage, acknowledge that his country is dependent on oil and gas, but also acknowledging the importance of protecting nature is an incredibly useful and important signal. Because we do not have enough leadership on the global stage, particularly from the global south.
15 signatories, including Guyana, Barbados, and Ecuador, joined the indigenous organization from the Amazon to back the declaration.
You are staying strong.
They pledged to strengthen global action for biodiversity protection, restoration, and sustainable use. But delivering on those promises will require funding.
I believe that once financing starts to flow in a way that is predictable and that is at a level that we need, that skepticism will disappear. And what we will have would be more advocates for this cause rather than skeptics.
The signatories hope more nations will join before the COP30 climate change conference in Brazil this November, where the urgency of aligning climate and biodiversity goals will take center stage.
I think that what we have to understand that maybe the key word for the moment we're living is urgency. Bringing together these two issues that were somehow born in Rio in 1992 is one of the things we have to try to do at COP30.
It is time for your most favorite segment of the show, the sports news. Let's get sporty. In a major shift, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee has officially banned transgender women, specifically those who went through male puberty, from competing in women's Olympic sports. The new policy follows an executive order signed by President Trump earlier this year and affects all Team USA national governing bodies, including USA Swimming and Track and Field. The USOPC says the move ensures fairness and safety in women's competition, but critics call it discrimination and politically driven. The ban takes effect immediately with full compliance required by August 1st. Let's have more on this by our reporter Mayeku Vela.
Team USA has banned transgender women from competing in Olympic sports. The decision follows a federal order backed by President Donald Trump, requiring athletes to compete based on their sex assigned at birth, and the U.S. Olympics Committee says it's about fairness, hence critics call it discrimination, and the ban takes effect immediately. I'm Mayeku Vela, GBS TV.
Well, we've come to the end of the news bulletin. It is always a pleasure having you on board. Let's do this again next time. Same channel, we make your news our business. My name is Stephen George, and our sign language interpreter tonight has been Ivy Kamau. Good night.